Rich Tehrani reporting for TMCnet. Microsoft recently announced the Surface Pro 3. CEO Satya Nadella was very excited to compare the device to the Apple MacBook Air, among other devices such as Ultrabooks, touting the functionality of this new third-generation tablet. A major differentiator was obviously the stylus, which Macs don't have. Neither do iOS devices, as well as the thinness of this new device, which is thinner than a MacBook Air, as you can see here with its keyboard. It's also lighter at 2.4 pounds versus 2.96 for the 13-inch MacBook Air. In addition, there is a micro SD slot with up to 128 gig of storage, an assortment of covers in different colors, and you can see something innovative the company has done before, but improved tremendously. This kickstand with virtually limitless variations or angles in which you can position the device on your lap. Now, lapability is something the company talks a lot about, but of course it works best on a desk. In order to find out more about the device, I checked it out at the Westchester Mall in New York. First thing I did was stop by the Apple Store to compare crowds. As you can see, the Apple Store consistently has a good amount of people in it, as you're probably used to if you've ever gone into an Apple Store. The Microsoft Store did not have crowds, even though this was the first weekend where the Surface Pro 3 was viewable. I expected a lot more people, but it is what it is. This is more of a business device. Maybe that's why. But you could see the company devoted some attention to great signage. But marketing aside, the tech community has reviewed the device fairly well. Shockingly well, in fact, considering the Surface 1 and 2 were considered to be failures by many in the tech community, and even the most die-hard Microsoft fans found reasons to avoid the device. Not to mention, of course, Windows 8, which is now 8.1, which a tremendous amount of people don't seem to like. It's very common for people I run into in the tech and telecom community to tell me that they have downgraded to Windows 7. However, in my review of the device, I was fairly happy with it. I thought it was much better than some of the naysayers had said, and I agreed with most of the positive reviews. Of course, there were some glitches with any device, and perhaps the most glaring is this pen loop, which people believe will eventually break. After checking it out myself, I tend to agree, as do the salespeople in the Microsoft Store, who recommend placing the pen on the bottom side of the keyboard, as you can see here. However, this interferes with the ability of the keyboard to attach nicely to the Surface device. By nicely, I mean that it can attach in two different ways to the keyboard. It either can lay flat, or it can be raised slightly, and that helps when you have it on your lap. Challenge I have is when the keyboard is raised slightly, it does feel a little bit like cardboard. You're typing on cardboard and you don't really have a solid feel. It works fine, but it just is not as nice as typing on a notebook or Ultrabook or laptop. Studies have shown that people use a laptop infrequently on their lap, but still Microsoft made a point of saying that the Surface Pro 3 has great lapability, a term that many journalists have made fun of, but it's a pretty good term. It describes the concept of using a device on your lap. In my testing, I was not thrilled with the way that the Surface Pro 3 sat on my lap, because it had to be exactly positioned in a way that was a bit uncomfortable for me to type for long periods of time. But for my line of work, even though I do a lot of typing, I really am not typing on my lap that often. So it's not a tremendous problem for me, and any device really has some drawbacks that you have to deal with, and in case of the Surface Pro 3, this is one of them. Speaking of drawbacks, another one is the tight key spacing on the keyboard compared to something like an Asus ZenBook, which has a little bit more spacing. However, when you lay the Microsoft Surface Pro 3 keyboard flat on the desk, you get a pretty solid feel, just like you might get from the ZenBook. You just don't have the spacing. But in my testing, it actually took me about half an hour or so to get used to the keyboard's layout, and I got to mistake-free typing in no time. Now, I'm a hunt and peck typer, maybe 20 to 30 words per minute, so your results may vary. So now with the hardware out of the way, let's turn our attention to Microsoft Windows 8.1. The software experience is not as refined as any software that Apple has, although I might argue that the iTunes experience is kind of clunky as well. but generally speaking, things you do on iOS and expect ready feedback, such as downloading an app and seeing status, those kinds of things just are not as smooth in the Microsoft Store or just in the Microsoft operating system, as is typically the case. You can do things myriad ways with Microsoft's operating systems, and simply with one way or two ways with Apple, making it a lot easier to get things done. However, if you're looking for the increased functionality of a Windows PC with all of the things that a Windows PC can do, such as running Flash, support for Xbox games, and literally decades worth of applications and compatibility, then you will be very happy with this device. As much as people enjoy touch interfaces, if you're going to compare the Surface Pro 3 to Android devices and things like an iPad or iPad mini, you need to consider the fact that you are able to use a mouse and a stylus with this device. In my experience, that makes you far more productive in applications such as email, where you might want to select 10 or 20 emails at a time from a busy screen full of different messages and delete them or move them. The mouse is really something that you either love or you really can do without, but for those of us that grew up with a mouse, you probably will be more productive with one. Those of you that prefer touch, well, then the device supports touch as well. In my opinion, I believe the Surface Pro 3 is a serious contender here in the Ultrabook category, or the super tablet category, or the laptop replacement category, depending on what you consider this device to be. It is really the best of all worlds, with a few drawbacks that pretty much any device will have. The cost is not as low as you might expect it to be. However, when you consider you've got a full and very powerful Core i3 or Core i5 or Core i7 processor, and up to 8 gigabytes of RAM and expandability to 512 gigabytes of storage, you really are talking about a superior device and something that should be considered for anyone looking to get maximal productivity on the go. In short, I like the device, and I think it's worth checking out at the Microsoft Store or picking up whenever you're ready for an upgrade. This has been Rich Tehrani reporting from the TMC Newsroom.